In a previous video, I've shown you how to make a form. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to take one of those forms and start adding different questions to it. Now, when you actually want to see it, you need to click on the part that says View Live Form, and this is, of course, what the people will actually see. What I'm going to do right here, though, is I'm going to kind of put them split screens so that we can actually kind of see what we're going to see on our end versus what they're going to see on their end when they're actually looking at the form. Anytime you want to see any updates on it, you need to actually hit the refresh on the actual form itself. Anytime someone loads a form, this is what they'll see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that question there, and I'm going to add my first question, or I can go to up there where it says insert. I'm going to add a multiple choice question. Now for this one here, let's ask the multiple choice question, what's the best of the Star Wars movies? And of course I can add some little help text, something to, sort of give an extra little prompt. And when I'm done, I want to hit the done button, and then I want to go over to the form and refresh it. This is what people actually see. There's my question, and then I have the little help text, the extra little prompt underneath it. Now, if I want to go back and actually add some options, I'm going to go over here, I'm going to hold the mouse over, or hit the edit button, and I'm going to actually put some different options in there. These are all the names of the different movies. These are all the different options that are going to actually show up on this part right here. So once I have them all in there, just click off anywhere on the side, refresh the page, and now I can see the question along with my different options there. So this is essentially a radio button, which this means they can only select one at a time. So that is creating a multiple choice question. Now what I can do is I'm going to show a different kind here, but instead of having to retype a question, one of the easiest things you can do is just hit that duplicate button. So now what's going to happen after I reload the page is I have duplicated that one question. And I'm going to change the second one by hitting the edit. I'm going to change it from multiple choice into choose from a list. Now functionally that's going to look pretty much the same. I don't really have to change much there, but when I go over here and refresh it, I'm going to see that even though it's essentially the same question, now all the options are in a drop-down menu. This is really, really handy when you're sort of trying to condense all your information on there and you don't want to take up too much space. So let's say I had, kind of a picture right here and I want to have a couple questions off of it. Drop downs are really good for condensing the question so it doesn't take up too much screen real estate. So I'm going to hit done over there. I'm going to duplicate that question again, but this time here I'm going to change this. I'm going to say, what are your favorite Star Wars movies? In this case here, I'm looking for more than one potential answer. So I'm going to change that from choose from a list to checkboxes. With checkboxes, here we'll refresh the page, they now have the option of putting more than one potential answer on there. Anytime you have more than one thing that you're going to be looking for, or you want them to answer multiple different things, you're going to want to go with the checkboxes there. It's kind of the same as the others, but this allows you to have more options selected, not just one or the other. Alright, I'm going to try another one now. I'm going to do a text. In this case here, I don't want them to choose from a list or go multiple choice. I actually want them to type out any answer that they want. So here we go. Now, they could type or write anything in there. Who's your favorite character? Yoda, Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader. It doesn't matter. With a text box, this allows them to have anything they want in there. Sometimes this is what you want to do for them entering a name. Unfortunately though, this is kind of limited. What if you want to have a lot more of an answer, almost like a short answer or an essay question? Well, I go back to the edit and I'm going to change it from text into paragraph text. Functionally, that's going to look pretty much the same on our end, but when I refresh and reload the page, you have a much, much larger text box. They can put a lot more information into that. I could even put in a little bit of a prompt. Sort of like in an essay question here where you're trying to put a little hint or something else for them to focus on. A paragraph text and a text allows them to enter a lot more information rather than just a multiple choice or a checkbox or a choose from a list. Some of the other things I can do, I'm going to add on a scale. If you want them to rank something on a scale, like in this case on a scale from 1 to 10, how bad was Jar Jar Binks to the Star Wars movies? Now right now by default it's set up 1 through 5, but I can easily hit that edit button and change that to 1 to 10. I can also add on a couple different labels here, with 1 being the best, that was great for the movies, 10 being the worst, it was a cinematic travesty. So now the students are actually going to have to make a choice, ranking it on a list. So on the scale of 1 to 10, how bad was he? And they have that option there of selecting. One other thing that I can do I can do a grid. Grids are a little bit more complicated, but they allow you to put in a little bit more complex answers. If you've ever answered one of those things, hey, rank all these different things, do you agree, somewhat agree, completely disagree? A grid is a perfect example of that. So I'm going to say, hey, rank the following characters from Star Wars on how good or evil they are. So here's my different characters. I'm going to put in my different horizontal rows. And here I'm going to have my vertical columns. I'm going to rank that, almost like agree, disagree, that sort of thing. So now I'm going to be ranking those different things based on those different options. Very easy to add a bunch of rows here and keep just a few columns. Now when I go and actually refresh the page, I have the ability to rank all these different things on that little scale that I've created. All right, another one I have the option of making are the date and the time. In this case here, for the date, I'm going to say, hey, what date will Star Wars Episode 7 The Force Awakens premiere on? And they're going to be entering that information. I have the option to include year or just the date as well. I can also have the option to include time. When I'm done here and I refresh the page, see what it looks like, it's going to be, hey, enter the date of this particular thing. In this case, Episode 7 will premiere on December 18th, 2015, and that would be something that they would submit. You also have the option, if you want, you could include time, so when you refresh that, they're going to have to enter the time for that as well. One other thing you might want to do with your questions is on each question, click that required question button. As soon as you hit done, that little asterisk will appear and it will mean that this question is required. They actually have to answer it. You can't submit it without it. So in this case here, they could essentially just check that one and submit it, and it's no problem with that. However, it's because of that asterisk. All the rest of them are not required, so they could submit those as blank. If I try to submit it without that, it's going to say this is a required question. So I could go into each question that I want and click that little required question. This means that they have to have something in there. They can't submit it without there. If you want them to answer one of those questions, this is how you would do that. And for even a paragraph text, as long as they have just a single letter in there, that's considered to be, hey, they had something in there, it's not blank. Now, anytime you submit this, you're going to have something in there. All right, I'm going to go back and show you how to rearrange questions. You might have all these questions really well, but you realize, ooh, I want this one to be a little bit above that one. What you can do is you can essentially grab and drag and move your question here. This means that now when I actually go to my page, that question doesn't appear first, and you can move them around as necessary. One caveat, one thing to be aware of, when you go to view responses, you're going to be looking at all this information in a spreadsheet. The spreadsheet columns are going to be set up in the order you created the questions. Even if you move questions around in the responses, the questions are going to appear in order. So if you create a question later on, it might mess with the order. That'll make more sense later on. Just be aware of that. All right, one other option we have here is this shuffle question order. Now when I go to my live form here, here's all the questions set up just the way I made them before, but if I hit that shuffle question order, it's going to take all my questions and it's going to mix them up. Every single time someone loads the page or you refresh the page, you're going to get a slightly different order. This can be really handy if you want to shuffle stuff. On your end, it'll still look the same, but from the student's end, it's going to appear all mixed and matched. However, you can get into a problem here if you're trying to ask them their name. Normally you want the name to be sort of the first question here, but if you have that shuffled question, the name might appear anywhere in those list of questions. So if you're asking identifying questions, they can be just about anywhere, and there's no way to sort of lock those in place so they're always at the top. Kind of a pain, but just something to definitely be aware of as you're setting up your Google Forms.